Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Feeling Thursday Battle Lounge with the 2MK team. We have been off for a little bit as we were returning from tournament and obviously getting the rest on. But I don't think there's any rust to get off, as one wouldn't have necessarily built up any in just the short rest period that we had after. Even those of us who did not go would have been practicing somewhat more. And I am working on a new bot, one that you will not be seeing tomorrow, but that is fairly far into development given what it is. Training with it, however, has helped quite a lot in terms of understanding specific aspects, and information from our matches and other people's matches technically at East Coast Throwdown has added to some understanding of where to focus. Our offensive players have learned to dash. Our defensive players have learned to watch for it. So you can expect that we are intending to push a little further today than previous, simply because of this additional knowledge. We've got approximately an even spread of offense and defense players today, though obviously there's always a chance that they'll just end up facing their own type. There's definitely been a lot of practice on throws, rolls, and reacting to rolls, to go with all of the other training in neutral that's been done. And you can tell that there has definitely been some advancement since our normally defensive players have gained enough offense to act as offense if they need to, which is kind of a problem. Rather, it is a problem when you can't do it in normal matches, as you'll just find people who are even more defensive than you, but have more explosive power. The specific change, though, the tendency to dash up to your perfect position, is neither an offense nor defense in itself. That more so comes down to whether or not your personal character benefits from being far away or not. If not, then go for it. You can dash up and block just as easily as you can dash up and think of a good attack. Is that how that works?
Select stage. It's about to be a party up in here!
Playing Chris today in order to get past, let's say, our usual Yashiro Mary match. But 8 rollback frames today, huh? Wonder why. Consistently so too. But I guess things are just already being weird. If they continue, you won't see me playing as much today, I guess. Because I doubt this is on Oni Rabbit's side, but on the other hand, it could be. It does happen. Another good reason to play this character now is that we recently released a bot that does work for Chris. As a whole, it won't help you that much against the character in general sense, but it's good to see what happens. Chris has the weirdest corner guard. I should actually say it's kind of weak. If he's corner guarding correctly, the opponent can get out if they guess even close to right. Normally a character will be able to kind of stand there, and if the opponent does anything but they are still just sitting there, they will usually break this position and actually get to keep them there. But Chris has to be very active, I find, and often has to keep on doing the same thing. So it's much easier to corner guard with Chris, the same way one does with Kula, for example, as a very aggressive character who just basically must always pressure and keep the opponent locked down. Alright, let's see if this clears itself up in some way. Usually, this is a toss-up as to whether or not we even get to continue the match. Alright, I've had time to get the confirmation that this, whatever issue it is not on Oni Rabbit's side, and therefore if I drop out, that lounge will probably continue, and I'll just jump back in order to stream it, as best I can anyway. As it will usually drop out often enough that technically I'll never get back up to the fighting position. That's completely fine today though, as we don't have any strong plans other than working through the practice we've got. Oh no, we get to have the match after all and rollback frames set to 0, but that's probably not going to stay there. No, it's fixed itself, whatever it was. Great to know. For those of you who don't necessarily know why this happens, it has to do with the way that characters and games are synced across all viewers of the match. So if you're having trouble and having good matches with one set of people and some other set of people that don't care, you might want to actually just make the lounge smaller. Less people to synchronize to means less of this problem, whatever it is. And you'll be able to have your matches faster and with less chaos, let's say. So far, we don't believe that has anything to do with the tendency to get weird rollback frames or flickering ping, but you never know. It's very easy to overlook edge cases in network programming. Perfect neutral jump. Completely perfect. The reason for that is because it gives me a better situation for corner guard once again. Oof, perfectly done. Once more. finish that.
Player 2 wins.
もしもし今忙しいからまた後でね
I feel like Shermie has particularly good anti-airs against certain types of character, so it makes it a little harder to hop. But she does technically because she should have better options anyway. That was a punish, I think. No, it is not in fact a punish. It's only a punish if I can get the super off. I'm always surprised that that move doesn't do more. Alright, let's see who survived the Great Purge. Everyone seems to be back.
Select members. Select order. 全てを大地に返してやる。Select stage.
Our main work, bot-wise, has been seeing whether or not we can morph the Angel bot into a different bot with little changes in inputs. Because the strategies and concepts of it are relatively universal in a lot of spaces for the type of characters left over after our first attempts using Big Fire. So, shifting the first two inputs more toward things that suit charged characters has led to some success so far, to the point where we're pretty sure we have at least something to test. Oof, cross-ups. I don't remember the juggle from that. One of the goals that we have for bots, which probably is not a specifically good goal, it's kind of ignoble maybe, has to do with, I admit fully, my own personal perspective of this game. And I should probably either fix it or think about whether or not it's having a good effect as a whole, or a group. But in short, we prefer games with a bit more neutral than this game has at most levels we get to see it. And that leads to wanting ways to train that will improve that neutral a lot more. Part of the reason I mention this now is because having watched more high-level footage of this game brought back to me from East Coast Throwdown, I have some understanding now of why this isn't such a terrible concept. In short, this game just has so much potential in other ways that having it being reduced to just hop defense and big combos almost seems like a waste. Why have all these normals and options for playing good neutral, and then the foundational strategy of the game completely ignores it? But it's not even necessarily that it's a first order strategy only that causes this to happen. Almost had it. I'm in one of those situations where I'm predicting a move that is usually the core of gameplay for the character, but she has no reason to do it against Shermie, so I technically did it wrong. You don't just blow back attack Shermie because Shermie will just grab you. Similarly, you don't do it to Geese because Geese will just grab you. So, don't do it. But then again, once I have 3 bars, don't do it, Geese will grab you applies to literally anything in the game. So, there's that.
Select members.
あんまり期待しないでね
Select order.
頑張ります
Select stage.
We haven't gotten quite as far as checking the other specifics for all characters for the new lot, but it's pretty obvious that if it's basically built around perfecting charge inputs, it's basically only going to work on charged characters. And so far, they're all doing okay, but we aren't sure that we could have gotten everything we can out of it. I'd have to think a lot more about them, which is why you're not going to see it this week. If
やだな
we do throw any robotics lab content, it probably will just be hanging around for a little bit. I think I need the lighter version for that. Yeah, there we go. This character is really annoying, by the way. If Chris players actually know what they're doing, they're just probably the most annoying player in the game. But you probably knew that, given that I play this character. That was such a, perfect sense / read, because, to be clear, that move loses its invincibility at a point where that's the only move that hits it, but there's no reason to do that move in neutral. I need a light for that. One of the things that makes this style work a little bit here is that it autocorrects as an option select and makes it a bad idea for Athena to do a lot of her offense, which means she has to spend more time playing defense or guessing. Using a lot of counter style moves doesn't work on most characters because once she lands she'll be very heavily punished, but Athena doesn't really have that on deck most of the time as a standard thing. Angel, on the other hand, does, and you should not mess with her ever. Her main problem being range, so you have to be ready and pretty sure that they're going to actually hit buttons. She also plays an extremely grounded game, so it doesn't come up at all. Alright, I shouldn't use that in this match if it's this laggy. I've been robbed of my best options. In fact, as a general thing, most of Shermie's better options don't work this way. You are just messing with people if you are playing her in heavy lag, simply because, especially against characters who can't cross the screen quickly, she can cross quickly, tends to hit you even if you jump when doing her, let's call it uppercut. Okay, that whatever sync it was is caused by other people. That's unfortunate, but hey. This is based on the reports I'm getting. So it should now have fixed itself because someone who was out of sync was watching. I didn't know she had this color. This is a very good color. I suppose this wouldn't actually be on all that high of a priority list for fixing, as it is an avoidable thing. As unfortunate as it is, it can be dealt with by having players not join match lounges when they are laggy or something. Part of the reason that our goal is so specific for the new bot is simply because this game only saves one bot, and we would greatly like people to be able to swap between the two with minimal effort, especially when the more complex inputs, specifically the ones generally toward the end 3, 4, 5, are involved, because those are usually relatively hard to change out or back. Sometimes we put a non-critical one in number 3 simply because we want to test 1 and 2 early, give people a little confidence if they're putting in the inputs in order, such as with our big fire bot. But it is common for it to go the other way as well.
Round 2. Ready? Go!
There's a specific spot you need to stand on screen for this matchup. And Benimaru can't really stop you from standing there, but he can recognize that you are, yeah, that. Therefore, when you're in corner, it's a little bit easier as he can't really do so much to stop you from being there. This game is so much better at this speed. Learn to dash, people, is very important. The reason you see me use that move as much as I do is because the move is actually invincible to strikes at close range, and because it moves you back, your opponent must be generally not doing anything. The play is often about standing in the spot where you think they will be afraid, but not afraid enough that they do nothing. Whew. That, for example, was not switching the mental state in time, because if my opponent is defending, I should just grab them. Like that. The fake parry position is quite good as well. Wrong one. That was in fact what one calls shenanigans. Totally, this is the point where I'm supposed to drop it back.
Select members.
Yeah, we're halfway through, so that's probably fine.
Select stage. Get ready for a battle of titans.
Now here's a matchup that should be rough, but oddly often isn't. Ralph can win this by becoming a grappler temporarily. If you change your mindset from I must hit with Ralph's normals to I must whiff all of Ralph's normals so that Yamazaki thinks I'm going to try to hit him, then you can run up and throw a lot, provided you've had enough practice with, running up and throwing. From the Yamazaki side, therefore, you should play somewhat more aggressively, which finally in turn does the same shift. Ralph will eventually get to actually hit buttons simply because Yamazaki shouldn't just defend. the difficulty though is that Yamazaki can, in this matchup, compared to others, just raw parry and neutral a lot more often. Ralph's moves have a lot of startup, and they're usually more so active and confusing. You're normally thinking you're not going to get hit, and then you do, or reacting too early to something, but Yamazaki's counter is so long that this doesn't really matter. See, like that. It depends on the spacing, of course, but as characters go, even with his hop, for various reasons, you can raw parry against Ralph more often, with the expectation that if it was at a timing where you thought you could be hit by a longer move only, the worst that will usually happen is that you get thrown, because it's so difficult to time the run-up punish on the parry at first. However, that's much more helpful to him in this matchup, as Dolores tends to focus a lot and need a lot of focus on making sure that she's attacking the right spot at the right time. Throwing her timing off adds a lot of strain. Again, forcing her to play somewhat more aggressively than she otherwise would. Leading to the interesting situation where we have definitely got a situation of one defensive player, or usually defensive player, versus a more offensive player, but because of the matchup, our defensive player is forced to play somewhat offensively. Our bot was created because I specifically wanted to see how can I get Leona to work. And because I didn't actually realize, I don't know the Leona main strategy for this game. I've seen people use her as closer with a lot of damage, but like just random neutral? Apparently that was it. I'm not used to her blowback being quite as good as it is in this game. I'm not sure if it's because I've never paid attention to it before, or just the frame data is different now, but it is one heck of a move. It's like half screen. And you basically can't punish it either. So she's either got all of these great tools from being close, or one get away from me tool, which does very little damage, but can dominate neutral to a point that I'm not really sure characters of similar range can do anything about. Fortunately for our Bogard, she's out of, oh well, I guess using raw grenade also works if your opponent is watching for everything else, which is kind of the point I was getting to before. There are various new uses of her grenade because of the way she throws the different ones now and having the hit, so complicated. What makes Orochi Yashiro such a dominating character sometimes is that he still has all of Yashiro's normals but now has command grabs. If you didn't know, Yashiro is a strong character mostly because of normals. Okay, back in line, and one rotated around.
Select order. にやろうぜ
Select stage.
Get ready for a battle of titans! Round 1. Ready? Go! Yeah! Yeah! Nice combo! Yeah! Two wins!
喧嘩が強い上に男前。
任務開始
Round 2. Ready? Go!
損傷計
This matchup is harder because Yashiro can attack from positions so relatively far away, but as you just saw, Leona has some options if she's willing to play somewhat. Defensively is the wrong word.
完了
Willing to give up damage for evasion. There you go.
Round 3. Ready? Go!
This is much easier. Even though Benimaru has lots of options for keeping her out of spaces, and she can't necessarily do as much damage with just her blowback attack, her forward light kick is a good option in a lot of spaces because his positioning often leads to it being a whiff punish, and you see the other options there. Made it? Yes. A decent reason to use up a lot of power on that because Benimaru versus Orochi Yashiro is better in neutral than Antonov for sure.
目覚めよ大地よ Reach for the top!
With Yashiro having very few direct ways in here. I'd almost say I don't have any suggestion. But you can just use a lot of light kick stuff and he'll at least have to care. There's your other main option. Yashiro can roll through a lot of Benimaru stuff, and because just the defending after the roll isn't sufficient, it mostly comes down to your execution with either the grab or specific timings on something else. Once you force your opponent to think about it, then either it's a matter of reacting in time to that, or manipulating the spaces you're standing at. But note that that was mostly only possible because of the previous point. Benimaru gave up the meter that would normally be used to defend in a way that would do lots of damage.
とっとと封印の中に帰りな
Oh Alrighty, rotation around.
Select members. Select order. 血を見せてやるよ Select stage. It's about to be a party up in here!
Yashiro is a little bit the opposite of what we mentioned before. Yamazaki doesn't have to be particularly aggressive, and in fact generally shouldn't be. Just defending is often good enough. Having all that space in front and entering either Serpent Slash stance or being ready to parry at the right moment means that that's your main option as Yashiro, and honestly it's not really worth doing. The one thing that helps Yashiro in this matchup is the fact that that style of defensive stance isn't really going to lead to anything. Your best option is to just let both characters build up lots of meter and not care about it. If your hops are good and your opponent's defense is slow, you should be able to get through anyway. But both of these characters have very good hop defense in most situations, so it doesn't really matter. They're also not terribly quick moving in other ways, so it tends to be a relatively slow drawn out match. That tends to lead to more explosive matches after it.
Burn to fight. Ready, go! Lightning kick!
This character's defense sometimes though. She's basically as good as Shermie when it comes to defending against hops, even cross-up ones. Presumably because if she wasn't, she'd be terrible as a character. The empty jump throw. Part of the reason this becomes more effective as you get better at the game is simply that when your opponent is very close to you, the sort of person who just keeps hopping at that spot is usually fairly easy to beat out. Because you only have to do one very specific, semi-obvious reactive thing. Getting used to the idea that an opponent will just be at that range and hop anyway can be a little harder, particularly if they've mastered the double crouching light into hop setup. But one of the main reasons you should learn to do this is simply that most players and most characters don't have any options at that point that aren't punishable. There are a few that will get them to good positions other than having to hop there, but you just have to break through your mental block that after a couple crouch light kicks, your opponent is going to be trying to go to neutral and play footsies. And once you've gotten past that mental space, it's usually a bit easier. The simple fact is that they don't have a good reason to do that. That's by game design, not because people are weird. If you've crouch light kicked twice, hopping is at least an option. I do wonder if they can't resolve this because it's more of a performance issue somewhere than a networking one. Oh, I see a loading. And that usually doesn't mean that I've been kicked. There we go. We are now all synchronized once again. I don't like this matchup from the Antonov side. I'm sure there are Antonov players for whom this is no big deal, particularly when they've got this much meter. But Terry just does too many things that Antonov can't easily deal with, and can stay at a range where most of Antonov's better options don't work. In some ways this makes it harder because even if you've got a lot of meter, it doesn't really matter if you have to use it to actually get in. In fact, he moves in specific ways so slowly that you can just use Power Wave as part of the matchup without worrying that much is going to happen. You do have to be careful that he will go through certain things with more powerful moves, invincible moves, and so on. But overall, if you're paying close enough attention, you get to just do this for a while. Fortunately, timing out is also an option. Or, you know, being crushed into the ground by a large man.
Select order. Select stage. It's about to be a party up in here!
One of the things that one has to understand tactically about this matchup is that Yashiro should go hard in the beginning before Chris has any meter. Because the worst that's going to happen is that I'm going to use too many uppercut moves, which you could then bait and go really hard. Unfortunately, the downside of that is Yashiro doesn't have any meter either, so big damage is not exactly going to be flowing out here. We're back to this again. Unfortunate, really. When you've got the meter, if you're already winning, just hold it. Because that'll happen eventually.
喧嘩が強い上に男前
Well, last time it fixed itself between rounds,
楽しもうぜ
but the flickering of that doesn't look like it's going to. I can't be sure anymore. It's flickering, but no rollback frames. Grab, huh?
いやここだ
Yeah, looks fine now. I really should have used the EX on that for safety purposes,
今忙しいからまた後でね
but I need the meter, so I have to go for the read. Am I going to get beated out this time? I don't think so. It's been managing to synchronize up pretty well this time. However, we are coming close toward the end of the stream. And if it keeps up like this, it might push us all the way there.
Now or never
But let's go.
行くわよ 決まったやっやっ
But it looks like all the rollback is gone. That's one of those matches where you both have so much meter that you're trying not to get deleted. And you end up playing cautiously out of that entirely. Easy punish. I feel like that was just Rabbit getting jolted out of the punish required there. Alright, let's go for the big bet and bet achieved.
風すぎて逆に息が乱れたわ。
Alright. Last match is a rotation. We're probably not keeping Lounge open today, but we haven't had any visitors today either, so probably doesn't matter. In fact, I've been told from the beginning that some people might not even be able to join. That makes this both our last on-stream match and possibly last match period of the night. With next content probably being 60 times Dead or Alive on Saturday.
Select stage. Nothing will stop this
Another one of those complicated matchups. From Athena's side, mostly think about when to teleport. Because this matchup requires a lot more than others do. There's so much good defense that can be used here from the Yamazaki side without Yamazaki specifically working a lot. But the teleport will get you through a lot of scenarios, particularly the long one. As if you got the Yamazaki player to think defensively, just dashing and teleporting is enough a lot of the time. Take the advantage when you can and do your attacking or your zoning, but do bear in mind that sometimes you just need to get there. And you won't get a response from every single teleport, simply because if you were getting that, your opponent was probably not thinking in the way required to deal with the rest of your options. I would normally tell people to defend after teleporting because you have to care, but I'm not really sure that's true. In this case, it might just be make the judgment at the moment you've got it.
now or never. Ready? Go!
Fortunately, this is a lot easier for Dolores than you'd expect it to be, even considering all her tools. Even more reason why Athena should sometimes just teleport in this matchup too. Her benefit from being too far away is nearly nil, so don't do that. One of the things you do have to get used to in this game that makes things like teleport and roll more effective is that some characters, particularly the zoning ones, have really long animations on their zoning tools. The tools themselves block a lot of space in front of them, but you can also just roll a lot of the time and be fine. Oof. I think it was a spacing thing. Hard work with the dashing once again. If we are having some robotics lab to show off some work tomorrow, you'll be able to find out via a tweet around 7:30 Eastern from our Twitter _MK_FGC. And if you don't know what we're talking about when we say bots at all, go check out 2-mk.org and you'll be able to notice what is being talked about whenever I go into these long babbles about them. Even if you don't actually input them, it can help some understanding of why specific things are being aimed for. If you play other games beyond this one, you'll probably find more luck finding bots for those games, but note that they're not all equally effective due to the various ways that game training modes work. The more effective a game's training mode is for bots, the better off you're usually in terms of learning how to deal with specific situations. But understanding bot theory is usually enough to get you there even for games where that's not the case. That looked like fishing, but the crane did not catch any fish today. As noted, that brings us to the end of our stream and quite possibly the end of the lounge. This has been Rillian, 142MK. Good luck with your training and good night, everyone.